I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School Board of Directors to order. Director Crumwoody, would you please read our priorities?
Certainly. Our priorities: the Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all of our students. First priority, provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, our schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. The second priority, direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. Director Snyder, would you read our mission and vision statements, please?
Our mission statement is to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. And our vision statement is education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Superintendent Tate, we'll move on to student board reports.
We've been off for a while, so I'm not sure you have to report of what has happened, but maybe what's going to happen. So students?
We don't have much to report on because we're just back from break. But so far, at our school, we have kindergarten roundup going on for the moms to get info packets for their kids that will be starting kindergarten. Lost my train of thought, sorry. Ann.
And finals Thursday and Friday. That's pretty much it.
Hello, I'm Emily from Davenport West. This past weekend, our volleyball team won districts in Des Moines. Also, we just started our spring sports at Davenport West. We have girls golf, tennis, soccer, and track. Also, in 2 weeks, we will have a showing of our jazz band at the Redstone Room.
Great. Thank you very much. Director DeFau.
I am aware that school board member Hannah Harrington is en route from musical rehearsal and has arrived.
Well, thank you for that notice. We were just having student board reports. Do you have anything to mention?
Yes. Okay, sorry, by the way. Our ROTC competed at the University of Nebraska drill meet and placed first in armed duet, third in armed individual drill routine, third in armed exhibition drill. One of our art club students, Devin Scaff, had his art of Vanderveer Parks selected to be displayed at City Hall for a year. Our musical is April 4th, 5th, and 6th. The 4th and 5th is at 7, and the 6th is at 2. It's $8 for students and senior citizens and $10 for adults. And also, as you guys probably are aware, our show choir, one of our show choir members died from an asthma attack. And their family asked our choir to sing at their funeral because she was such a part of our family. And so it was a really honor to be a part of that and that she loved being with us.
Thank you. We'll move on to the showcase. Superintendent Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President and Board. We have Jackson Elementary School today, Jackson Jaguars. And Teresa Betcher, are you going to start or someone? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to share some highlights about Jackson Elementary. I am Mary Newcomer, a 4th grade teacher, and I've brought with me Jeff Wilhelm, our PE teacher, and he's also the voice of our Jackson announcements each morning. I have our counselor, Cassie Ericke, 2nd grade teacher, Nerea Salzbrenner, and 5th grade teacher, John Connolly. We are all members of the Positive Behavior Intervention Supports Program at Jackson, or PBIS as we call it. The program is in its 6th year at Jackson, promoting positive behavior expectations using the mnemonic spelled ROAR, which stands for ROAR. Respect yourself, others deserve respect, always use life skills, and respect your surroundings. Last year, our PTA assisted our school-wide team by funding a professional DVD that highlights our Jackson students and the faculty demonstrating the ROAR throughout the building and at recess. We use the DVD as an instructional tool in every classroom, and when new students and families come to Jackson, we also use it for review. We just used it the last couple months here when there's been breaks after Christmas break, after spring break. So we'd like to share with you some parts of the DVD this evening so that you can see how Jackson Roar is part of our daily activities. And then at the end, our principal will share the data on our office discipline referrals, but more important, she will share how the increasing number of students who receive positive reinforcement maintaining their positive behavior. So I can let you, those are the different modules. If you guys want to choose, otherwise I'll choose for you. Is there something in particular you would like to see? We've got the arrival dismissals, procedures, assemblies, hallways, lunchroom, playgrounds. Lunchroom? All right, that's what we were, so, sure. Do you want to sit over? Yeah. I'm gonna click it on here.
Which one are you clicking?
Lunchroom, it's up there. You might have to, oh, there we go.
Get on board. Get on board. Get on board. Get on board. Get on board with Jackson Roar. Get on board with Jackson Roar. R. R. Respect yourself. Respect yourself. O. O. Others deserve respect. Others deserve respect. A. A. Always use life skills. Always use life skills. R. R. Respect your surroundings. Respect your surroundings. I'm on board. I'm on board. I'm on board. I'm on board. I'm on board with Jackson Roar. I'm on board with Jackson Roar.
Jackson School Expectations.
When we go to the lunchroom at Jackson School, we follow the Jackson Roar. Respect yourself. Others deserve respect. Always use life skills. And respect your surroundings.
Here are the rules you need to follow every time you go to the lunchroom so eating will be safe and pleasant for everyone.
When going to the lunchroom,
Follow your teacher's directions and walk to the lunchroom area using line basics.
Line basics. L. Look forward. I. In your own space. N. Knee hands to your side or behind your back. D. Everyone places off.
Wait in line. Pick up one milk if desired. Enter the lunchroom by the correct door. Choose all your side dishes, fruit, and vegetable before sitting down. Clearly say your name to the adult checking you in. Find a seat quickly at your classroom's designated table and stay there until dismissed. When you see the peace sign, stop talking and finish your lunch. When dismissed, check your area for trash and personal belongings. Walk to the trash can and wait for your turn to dump your tray. Empty leftover milk into the bucket. Stack your tray in the tray bin. Go directly to your spot and follow line basics.
Roar! R! Respect yourself.
we eat our food appropriately at Jackson School.
We only eat our own food and never waste it.
We keep our food on our tray and in our own space.
So we won't bother people sitting next to us.
We raise our hand if we need something.
Adults are here to help us when we spill, forget something, or can't open our milk.
When we see the peace sign, we stop talking and quickly finish our food.
We only have 2 minutes before we have to leave.
Others deserve respect.
We use our manners.
Thank you. We say please, thank you, and excuse me to the adults who help us and other students at our table.
We use an appropriate voice.
We're polite and keep our voices low so everybody can hear their neighbors.
We allow anyone to sit by us.
We never exclude anyone because it's not fair. And we wouldn't want that to happen to us.
We only take as much food as we will eat.
So we don't waste and everyone has enough.
We use hand sanitizer so our hands are clean for lunch.
So we kill the germs that can make us sick.
We sit forward on our bench.
Flatten our bottoms with our feet on the floor so we don't bother the person in the seat next to us.
While preparing to leave the lunchroom, we wait to be excused.
We stay in our seat until an adult tells us what to do, so we'll stay safe.
We clean up after ourselves.
So that the people who come after us can have a good lunchtime too.
We empty our milk into the bucket.
So that we don't make a mess.
We throw our trash and leftovers in the trash can.
So the cafeteria stays nice.
We stack trays neatly.
So it will be easy to clean up.
And we leave the lunchroom by going directly to our spot and using line basics.
So we will be organized and safe.
If you obey these expectations every time you go to the lunchroom and follow the Jackson Roar, respect yourself, others deserve respect, always use life skills, and respect your surroundings, then you will have earned the right to say,
Do you want to see the recess one too, or are you good?
We have a monthly assembly. That was last. I know we're kind of short here. We have a monthly assembly where the children are honored. They select, they might receive this type of an award for doing something with the Roar. We have teachers that are honored. The students write letters to us about them. We also have, at the very end of the year, we have, for every student that has never received any type of office discipline referral, they get this. But throughout the time, we have these for our staff and lots of little things that the children earn. The whole goal behind this is we know that if they're in the room receiving instruction, then that's the best that we can have happen. When you get an ODR, an office discipline referral, that means you're usually out. And that was what we did not want. So when I very first came, and they have lots of incentives. This is a praise paw. I caught you in the hall doing something wonderful, so we write that. There's a drawing. There's all these little fish about what the behavior is. The data I have here for you, and that's the last little piece. I can leave that with you, but you can see just here, year 1 is the blue that I was there, year 2 is the red, and year 3 is the white, which is right now. This is the 6th year of the program, and we just kind of brushed it off, and these great people here kind of put that together with the support of the PTA, and this professional DVD has been wonderful. But as you see, it's playgrounds, restrooms, it's every area that you might have in question. So we can leave this for you to look and see. But right now we're at 88% of our children have never had an office discipline referral at all this year. And you've also implemented the minors in a better way. I know,
Right.
this
So if
year.
it's not an office, it's something that maybe we want to make sure that their parent is aware of. It's a behavior that's, it's not serious enough for an office referral, but we want to make sure their parent knows and have that contact with them. Then we write it up on a minor form and follow up with it that way.
And the final new thing we did this year, because they're always tweaking it, is on the bus, because we want this to be everywhere, they get little tickets, like if you're doing a nice job, they'll just go down, they put their name on the back of it, drop it at the front of the building, and the children have a little drawing. If you are selected and receive one of these, we have a whole selection of books that the children pick from each month, and that's their reward.
So it's the bus drivers that get the tickets and then they hand them out with the ones that.
But if you're a child, and you could get it multiple times, this award, then you do get to choose a book at each month. And this is just, we wanted to share this because it's something we really believe, that whole behavior piece is attached to, that positive learning. So, thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Director Sherwood.
I am interested in looking at that data sheet that you have, so.
Okay, we'll leave that for
leave
you.
that
And
for
I
us.
do have an extra DVD if anybody wants to see it, we can leave it and it can just be dropped off to us
Sure,
if
I'd
you
be
would like
happy
that.
I'd be happy to take a look at that too. I'm a big fan of PBIS and I appreciate you guys doing this. I think it should be universal across the district, and gives us a good, well-researched foundation for dealing with discipline in a non-coercive way. And so the positive reinforcers that you guys have included, your PAW, whatever that thing was, and all that, are things that we use in the alternative education field as well, and find that that works. Because a lot of kids, and you know this, a lot of kids who are disciplinary problems are that because they've endured a lot of different kinds of stressors in their lives, and adding to that just adds fuel to the fire. So de-escalating that emotionally is critical, and PBIS allows us to do that. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
You're welcome, thank you.
Anybody else? Director Dickman.
I just wanted to say I'm very impressed that you found a way to extend it to the school buses. I know that that's an issue that's really hard to as teachers because you're not there, and so I think that that's kind of genius how you guys came up with a way to use the incentive system.
The bus drivers were grateful for it too. I think it kind of gave them a way to.
Yeah, makes them involved too. So that's great.
Director Kluhl.
Did I understand that teachers also might get a certificate as you were talking through it? I think that's part of that role modeling thing. I think that's good for the kids to see that we're all roaring at Jackson.
They actually kind of submit a letter to me.
Excuse me, Teresa, would you mind speaking up here in the microphone?
The children will submit a letter to me. You know, that's their, and that's why we are able to honor different teachers each month. So,
yeah.
and we even, it was kind of funny, we just recently got another letter about from, and I said, well, I'll have to buy some kind of a sticker for a paw for that teacher that already has been. So it's contagious and it's positive. And that's the whole point, is we want you in the classroom, we want you there, we want you to understand, we want you here at school.
Shows
That's what it's
everyone
all
working
about.
as a team. I think
Yes.
that's great.
Yeah. So thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation, or the showcase. That was great. Move on to communications. Director DeFau, would you mind going through those for us, please?
Sure. March 25th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. will be a public discussion on bell times at Central High School Auditorium. March 26th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. a public discussion on bell times at West High School Auditorium. March 31st, 5:30 p.m., Taste of Pro Start, River Center, Davenport. April 1st, 3 p.m., Legislative Advocacy Committee, ASC Executive Boardroom. April 2nd, 4 p.m., Policy Committee, ASC Executive Boardroom. April 7th, 5:30 p.m., Committee of the Whole, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. April 14th, 7 p.m., Regular Meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. April 28th, 7 p.m., Regular Meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom.
Thank you very much. At this time, we have opportunity for open forum. We have no open forum requests this evening, but we always do encourage members of our community to participate in that, to give input on school district issues or concerns. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the consent agenda as presented by the administration.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director DeFau?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I recommend that the board approve the following resolution for the approval of bills. The resolution is as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board, having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn in the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of March 6, 2014 through March 19, 2014.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director DeFau?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. We'll move on to the superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a committee that's putting together the program and then transition plan for the students who are currently at the Wittenmeyer Learning Center. And we spent a lot of time trying to search for suggestions to name that program. We all said when we hear it, we'll know it, and we probably had 50 or 60 recommendations. And finally, when we heard the Keystone Academy, we decided that would be the one. And we chose that because of the symbolism of the Keystone. The definition, one is an architecture, the central wedge-shaped stone on an arch that locks its part together, or two, something is necessary to connect or support a number of other related things, or three, a central cohesive source of support and stability. And as we're visualizing it, the Keystone Academy can be the bridge between the academic experience and success in life. So we feel that's quite appropriate. I have a letter from Susan Bruce, who is the PBIS consultant, Iowa Department of Education. She's the Positive Behavior Interventions and Support Specialist. Dear Principal Wilkins and the Wilson Elementary School staff, it is with great pleasure I announce that Wilson Elementary School has received the PBIS Honor School Award for the 2012-13 school year. This award recognizes the Wilson Elementary School community for their great effort, enthusiasm, and commitment that has brought them to the level of implementation of school-wide PBIS. To receive this recognition, schools must show evidence that certain criteria were met, and it goes on to talk about those criteria. So we do have a lot of schools which are doing PBIS, and certainly Wilson is leading the way. I'd like to also mention the reduction of the dropout rate in the last 3 years because of extremely hard work on the part of the district, and because of students' desires and parent support and community support, we've cut that dropout rate in half, both in 7 through 12 dropouts and grades 9 through 12. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent? Okay. We'll move on to other items requiring action. May I have a motion regarding approval and plans and specifications for the Central Auditorium and Natatorium project?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the plans and specifications for the Central Auditorium and Natatorium project.
May I have a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the Central Auditorium and Natatorium project as published in the Quad City Times on Friday, March 14th, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Sherwood.
Could we get Scott up? Thanks. You and I had a brief conversation about Kimberly Center and the redesign there, and how we were proceeding as far as environmentally friendly attributes to that program. I'd like to know what we're doing at Central that would show us as leaders in this effort.
We are not utilizing any solar or geothermal on this project. We're utilizing equipment that we have already put in place through the last air conditioning project. We are using a lot of daylighting from the building, which can contribute to the thermal mass on the side of the auditorium as it comes in through the upper windows. But other than that, there were no specific items that we did to lead in the green initiative.
And I just want to make sure that I'm on the record on this thing, and I've said it before. We're in an environmental crisis in this country and in the world, and it takes leadership to set a tone for how we're going to deal with this. And I understand that there may not be immediate payback on some of these things, solar and so forth, but that the payback does come, and establishing an infrastructure for change is critical. And if public entities don't do it, it's hard for us to imagine that private entities are going to do it. So things like charging stations for EVs and those sorts of things, as well as solar, wherever it's possible to use those things to diminish our carbon footprint is critical. And I can't say it strongly enough. Our students, our families, our state, our economy are at risk, and we are doing precious little to address that. And this district, although I really applaud you guys for geothermal, because that's a big deal, and that really does impact the carbon footprint, there's much more we can do, but it has to be a top priority. It can't be on the back burner. And so solar assist hot water in a pool like that would seem to be natural. Again, charging stations where we could put a few in, and I understand that there's not a huge demand, but the demand won't grow until there's an infrastructure that will support it. Those things are critical, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but this is a big deal for me, and I hope that we can change our philosophy a little bit to embrace the reality of what's going on the planet. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Director DeFau.
There are some additional projects that are resultant of these proposed projects, namely the moving of the tennis courts to Brady Street Stadium and the parking reconfiguration on the tennis courts.
Correct.
Can you tell me how much those projects will cost combined, even though one may be an estimate?
Yeah, we're estimating, excuse me, we're estimating that the tennis court parking is going to be $400,000. That was included in the original estimate that was brought to the board as part of the scope when we determined what the scope was. And that was the whole project in itself was about $25.3 million. That includes fees, everything out the door. That did include $400,000 for the parking on Harrison Street for 4 courts. We're going to leave 2 for both community and school use, and then $500,000 for the tennis courts.
Okay, so the total project is 25 million plus, not
Well, this is just construction costs.
right.
Right. That is just construction costs, but included in that are those projects.
So the 23 million is inclusive of those.
Of those projects, yes. Mm. The rest is fees and other items that make up the rest of that amount. But that is our intended bid amount for construction only.
With total project cost being in excess of 25 million.
25, $3,064,000.
Thank you.
Director Johansson, we would like to show the board just some conceptual for your information, if you would like that. And we can talk through it for about 5 minutes, if that would be okay.
In a minute, when we get
Okay.
done with our discussion. Is there any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
Scott, could you talk about the renovation of the old pool?
Yeah. As we started to lay out the footprint, we needed a way to get students from the main building to the new pool and auditorium. And so we laid out a corridor, for lack of a better word, on the outside, on the west side, that would consolidate both of those buildings, connect them. And by doing that, we effectively took away our ability to do any major construction in that, and that is major construction to get into that pool and to pour it with concrete or however we're going to renovate it. It's major construction. We would not have been able to get in there if we wouldn't have added that project in at this time. We would have been landlocked from doing any future renovation in that space.
So you pulled that up from a later year.
No, actually, it was in this year as well. It was in the 13-14 plan with the auditorium and the pool.
I was just wondering, I mean, to what use will that old pool be put that the new pool couldn't do?
Well, it's going to be support spaces for the school, 2 multi-purpose spaces, and also some storage. Multi-purpose spaces will be able to be anything from music, additional music space, either for band, show choir, orchestra, or for any other items. There's a real need. Cheerleading is an up-and-coming sport, and it's going to be sanctioned, as I understand, by IHSAA at some point. And so they're looking for space to be able to accommodate lots of things. So we're including that design in. It's got high enough ceilings that we can do provide a safe area for that additional competition as well. So it can be many things. It can be large group testing. It can be optional classrooms at some point. We're designing it with the technology and ventilation and everything in place so that it can be whatever they want it to be.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Director Sherwood.
Just for clarification, there won't be a pool in the old pool,
No,
right?
no, it's going to
You're
be,
filling that sucker in
yes,
and
it's
making
going to be useful space.
Anybody else? I've got a question, and I'd like you to take less than a minute to answer it. When I think about all of the criteria that you must have when you're working on a project, and I'm thinking about the usefulness of the space, the application of the space, the safety of the space, the lighting, all of the things that go into it, but including the consideration for green considerations that Director Sherwood was alluding to earlier. Can you tell me just briefly, how do you determine the prioritization, and how do you work all those things together, and does it have much to do with the board's thinking?
I think if we're going to go to a green initiative, I think it is a board decision, because there is an impact, a large impact to the projects that we'd bring forward. If we can fit it into the project, we will. We can, but once we had a number to add in more green initiatives would have pushed it, north of 26 million and then some.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes for, and you aren't going to do this on every one of these projects?
No.
Okay.
This one and the new Marquette, 30
All right.
801
Okay.
Marquette. And I told them 5 minutes each.
Okay,
So
go for it.
I've got my watch.
I-
And and I'll wrestle them down.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get started and cut into my 5 minutes. Thanks again. John Rigsby with CSO Architects. Scott asked us to do this because it's been a long time since we'd shown you. Just a refresher for those of you who are here and kind of show you the ones that weren't here what we're talking about as part of this project. And, okay, how do I change it?
There you go.
Okay, thanks. So how do I change this? Oh, okay. There we go. Site plan real quickly. This is just looking down on the site. The existing building, as you can see, is the white outline. The new is the shaded. North is to your left, so 12th Street is along the north end of the property. The main pieces are this big addition, a new parking area along the east of the main addition, which is where the main entrance is going to be, a new parking lot to the south, which consumes a portion of that green recreational space and band area. We are preserving enough for the band to practice on from a 10-yard line to a 10-yard line and full width of a football field. Scott mentioned the converting existing tennis courts and green space to new parking. That's at the intersection of 12th and Harrison. So that's these areas here in the dark shade. The 2 existing tennis courts to remain are shown remaining. Oops, sorry. Just a blow up of that same thing, and also again. Landscaping, we've had several meetings with the local agencies and authorities and reviewed these plans. Design review board with local building officials, and so this is the result of those plans. So we are putting a new driveway that connects Main to Harrison. That's about at the location where that terrace is, if you know where the hill slopes down and then flattens out and then slopes again. That's about where it flattens out right there, to give you some perspective of the size of the addition. Again, there will be additional landscaping around the parking lots. These parking lots do incorporate pervious pavement in the parking space areas to assist with the drainage and to reduce the footprint, as we were talking earlier. Okay, so on the floor plans, as you recall, that steps down, the lowest level will be the pool deck area. That's at the same level as that cross driveway that I just showed you. There will be an entrance at that location, at that level, off of that big south parking lot, and access down to the band practice field and PE field. And you can come in that entrance at that level and access the locker rooms and the pool deck. As you move farther north, then, at the next level up, which is 14 feet higher, will be the new parking lot to the east, which is at street level, and then the main floor of the auditorium. So the main lobby area is on that level, the upper level, and as there are 3 separate entrances, one for the pool, one which consists of 2 vestibules for the auditorium, and then one to get you into the auxiliary gymnasium and the rest of the school, should you wish to just go that route without passing through the auditorium lobby. Also, as you enter the pool lobby, you can go right straight through this set of doors, and pool spectators will go right in at that level and down the steps to their seat and overlook the pool for spectating. Primary restrooms and concession are located at this location at the south end, which would be shared with the auditorium and the pool. And then farther, this is the area we were just speaking about, the old pool area. You can see it right here is laid out. These are the 2 multi-purpose rooms that Scott just mentioned, and 2 very large storage areas. A new corridor will cut over east to west, which will help facilitate student traffic flow, and will improve existing traffic flow as well as accommodate future traffic flow. The new corridor to the west that was mentioned earlier is located here. It will connect the existing entrance, which is right next to the auto shop, and bring performing arts area right down to the stage where we have a door onto the stage where they can go directly onto the stage at that point in time. Scroll. Then one level up from there, 21 feet higher, will be a balcony for the auditorium. There's about 650 seats on the first floor and 250 on the second floor. You will go up either of these large stairs or up an elevator. And to this intermediate level on the north stair will connect to that existing corridor that's on the upper level that runs along the west wall of the auxiliary gym. So it will provide accessibility to that corridor now. And then you go up at another flight of steps to get to the balcony level. As you enter the vestibules into the balcony, you can go across and then up to your seats. And there are also seats that go around the 3 sides, very similar to kind of recreate the effect of the existing auditorium in the original 1904 building. So you probably remember these images, the original 1904 school, George Marshall Gym, the auxiliary gym. So our addition, the auditorium, is this mass right here, and the pool is this one right here. There's the east parking lot we mentioned that's at street level. You would have to go down a set of stairs to get to this cross drive and to that south parking lot. And there's that entrance that's at the lower level as well. And we do have accessible parking in both locations for people who are wanting to access either of those sides. And you just catch a glimpse of the PE and band practice field at that lower left-hand corner. But you can see the architecture is very respectful, very reminiscent of the George Marshall architecture. This is a better view from ground level, looking at the main entrances. So here are the 2 entrances into the auditorium. To the right is the entrance into the gymnasium and the rest of the school, and to the left is the entrance into the pool area. Those 2 monumental stairs flank the entrances of the auditorium, And then the auditorium lobby is a very tall space with 3 large arched windows, which again evokes the architecture of the George Marshall entrances as well as the original 1904 building. Another view looking more from the south, directly at that entrance, at the lower level and up those stairs, you can see that, and the landscaping that will be included in the project. We provided what's called a translucent panel. Cow Wall is a brand name to provide natural light into the pool, but not glaring light, and also windows above in the corridor between the auditorium and the pool to bring natural light into those spaces. The building will utilize LED lighting to help reduce the amount of energy to be used, and also occupancy sensors for lighting controls and for ventilation controls. This is the southwest corner. This will be a loading dock area. There's that cross drive once again off of Harrison. Trucks will be able to back into this loading dock, and there's also a large service elevator that takes you from up to the next level where the scene shop is, the stage, and where performing arts groups can come down that new corridor and access that elevator as well. So that will serve multiple purposes. Then finally, from the northwest, this is that corridor along the west side of the building, again very reminiscent of the architecture of George Marshall gym, with a main entrance right off the stairwell that comes down off the gym and the locker rooms in that location. Very quickly, the project schedule is we're asking for approval of the drawings and specifications so that we can go out to release the drawings to the bidders next Monday. Pre-bid conference will be back here on the 15th to meet with any potential bidders, and we expect to receive bids on the 29th of April. We will review those contracts. We will meet with the apparent successful bidders, and we will then come to you hopefully in May with a recommendation and ask for your approval of that construction contract. The expectation is that construction would begin in May, and the overall completion of the overall area, with the exception of the old pool area, would be completed in time for school year of 2016. The only reason the old pool area will be delayed slightly is because we have to wait till the new pool, or until swim season's over in the spring of 2016 to be able to get in there and start the demolition process. I should mention we are planning to issue this project as a single prime contract, which means you'll have only one contract with one large general contractor who will be responsible for the entire project. Also with me are Andy McNeely with CSO Architects. He's project manager, been working with the entire architectural engineering team. Greg Galley will actually be taking on a much more significant role once this project is bid and goes into construction. You'll be visiting the site on a weekly basis. Our eyes and ears, we will be coming out at least at a minimum once a month to review the project as well. Other members of the team, as you might recall, are KJWW from Rock Island, Missman, civil engineers from Bettendorf, and then a structural engineer from Indianapolis. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Director Sherwood.
A couple. When you go to a single contractor on a project that's this big, you're eliminating the possibility of a lot of people bidding on this that might be locals and increasing the possibility you're going to get an out-of-town contractor. Is that true or not?
It can be true. I know that we have 3 or 4 local contractors that are very, very capable and very eager to bid this, and really they were hoping that we would go that direction. I think with whenever you open it up to multiple contractors, you also open it up to possibilities of conflict and disgruntlement. Having a single source responsible for that is a project of this complexity. We felt like that was the best way to go on this one because of the complexity and the schedule.
Can't that be remedied by a qualified project manager?
It can, or construction manager.
My concern is, and I hope the board shares this, that we put as many people to work locally here as possible, and that these tax dollars stay local as much as possible.
Yes. Right.
So that's a real concern. What about exterior lighting on this thing?
The exterior lighting on the site lighting is LED lighting. We also, based on the design review board's comments and the Hilltop group, we have incorporated some more period-looking light fixtures up by the building. Out in the main parking lot, that'll be more your standard style lighting, but they will be LED lighting.
Are we doing something to wash these? You've got pretty expansive walls here that are fairly,
We are, yeah, and if I could go back to that one rendering real quickly. Well, you may be able to see that we do have light fixtures on this wall. There will be, at this location on that large, big wall, the name Davenport Central High School in large letters. It will be lit. We also are providing wall sconces on the front entrance, and then lights shining up on the walls above those lower roof areas.
very good. In one of my previous incarnations, I was a landscape designer in
Oh, okay.
California, and this looks pretty sparse to me. I see no foundation plannings. Is this the basic conceptual stuff? We're going to
It
fill
is,
this
the
in?
rendering's not entirely complete. There will be ground plantings and things under the trees, and particularly on the sloped areas, to help control erosion and things of that
And I'm
nature.
assuming the south side, the trees are going to be deciduous so that we can take advantage of
Yes.
winter heating and summer cooling?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Scott, is there anything else that you
No,
need? Okay.
no.
All right, any other discussion on this item? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluel.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
No.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of plans and specs for the North High School student locker replacement?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation for the plans and specifications for the North High School student locker replacement project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll now hold a public hearing on the North High School student locker replacement project as published in the Quad City Times on Friday, March 14th, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Snyder.
I just have a question, because those other lockers are kind of buried in those walls pretty good. Does this money here foresee any wall damage or repair structurally to remove those and replace?
No, they should come out pretty clean.
Okay.
Who've had a look at it has thought that they're pretty much taken put back.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluel.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of plans and specs for Central High School 3 entrance renovations project?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I move that the board accept the administration recommendation to approve the plans and specifications for the Central High School 3 entrance renovation project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the Central High School 3 entrance renovations project as published in the Quad City Times on Friday, March 14th, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Sherwood.
Sorry, Scott.
Sorry.
In your
asked for it.
Your discussion of this that you've provided the board, and you talk about one of the areas that has to be done, I think, is off the cafeteria, and one of the reasons it has to be done is because there has been deterioration of the structure of the doors and windows. there's a lot of controversy right now in the community about the Rock Island Courthouse, and there's going to have to spend a lot of money over there to take care of things that a lot of the folks in Rock Island believe are poor maintenance issues, have grown from poor maintenance. What are we doing wrong with our maintenance, or are we doing something wrong with our maintenance that leads to this kind of deterioration, and we have to put bucks back into it?
Yeah, all three of these are the same vintage, the same time, and the same style. And my experience tells me that the way that when it rusts at the bottom means that there was a detail missed in the installation, and it's common to all three of them. We're afraid the wind may blow it over if we don't get them out. It has deteriorated that much underneath. It wasn't something that was that's maintenance related, because if you'd have to take it out and you'd have to take it out and replace it essentially, and at that point you might as well replace it anyway, or everything. It just doesn't lend itself to good maintenance, those types of things. It's details.
How do we convince the folks watching this, taxpayers, that we're not going to repeat the same problems?
Well, we're going to watch over the details and make sure that they're correct. I've seen it in buildings that are 20 years old, 10 years old. The details on the windows here, they used to have many leaks around the building, and we had a structural engineer come in and do some water studies on it, spray water on it, and then see how it came in. That's the way that they can determine whether it's a detail that was missed or done incorrectly, or it's as you say, maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of plans and specs for restroom renovations Phase 6 project?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation with the plans and specifications for Phase 6 restroom renovations project for Adams and J.B. Young schools.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on restroom renovations Phase 6 project as published in the Quad City Times on Friday, March 14th, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director DeFau?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of plans and specs for 3801 Marquette Street remodel project?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the plans and specifications for 3801 Marquette Street remodel project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the 3801 Marquette Street remodel project as published in the Quad City Times on Friday, March 14th, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Sherwood.
Yes.
You and I have talked about this at some length, but I'd like to know, because the kids now have been deprived of a gym by this move, what is the long-term plan that we have to reestablish the ability to do indoor athletics in the wintertime?
Well, we are providing a fitness area for them for many type of aerobic, and they like to do a lot of alternative exercises with utilizing technology. So we provided a couple spaces for that. We have set aside on the site a space for a future expansion of a gymnasium in the event that the board would want to move in that direction. We have designed it so it is possible to put one in there.
Right, so that space is dedicated so it won't be.
Correct. It's in the site plan, yes.
Good. And I didn't ask this question earlier, but I was pleased to hear that you're using permeable surfaces in the central in those parking lots. Are we going to do the same thing on the parking lot at this building?
We are not here. This has more drainage. There was no drainage on those tennis courts or in that area on 12th Street and Harrison. And the city asked us to do that to retain the water on site. And we did that in lieu of a more expensive underground storage, which you saw on the south parking lot in the south end. That's actually a retainage area that's built in underneath tanks. They're built underneath the asphalt. That's why they recommended that we do that, is because there is no storm drain in that area to take the water.
All right, thank you.
Any additional discussion? Director Cluel.
Scott, just for clarification, I understand that this motion is in regards to the plans and specifications for the Marquette Street remodel project, but in our board packets, there was also a bid solicitation with a winning bid that I've got here.
For demolition.
Oh, that's for demolition.
Yeah. And that's a later action item.
Okay.
You know, if you remember, last month we came to you and asked for permission to bid the demolition so we can get that done and get it out of there so we can keep it rolling.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Director Dickman.
Can you discuss for the record the effect on the general fund of this project? Obviously, the construction is not coming from the general fund.
Correct.
But can you speak to whether or not it will have an adverse or positive effect on?
Well, it'll have an adverse effect from the point that it's another building in the district that we own and maintain, and also heat and cool. So from that standpoint, yeah, so it'll also utilize or need additional manpower for cleaning.
I just wanted to express my concern that that's straining our resources further.
Yeah, I know it. Yes, it is.
Any additional discussion, Director?
And to that point, when we initially had this discussion, we were talking about the possibility of a new building that would incorporate all the needs as opposed to this one and maintain the current Kimberly Sidney building. I believe you told us that it was going to be a wash, that there wouldn't be any increased cost for maintenance and for heating and cooling, that because the spaces in the Kimberly Center would be reduced dramatically, that would offset this.
There will be some offset, yes, but I can't say that it would be a positive impact to the budget. It's a lot of square feet that we are going to be responsible for, and that we do have we do have a lot of additional controls in place to help us run it more efficiently. But it's still going to.
No, I appreciate it. The fact is, though, that we have not closed the building and opened the building. We've opened the building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks.
Marcia, you've got something you want to say?
I just want to supply some clarification. When we looked at the cost of the Wittenmeyer facility, and when we looked at what it was costing us for that, we had included in that maintenance and operation expense. So it is actually a wash to the district, because that was a savings that we were going to realize from the cost associated with Wittenmeyer that would be transferred over to this site. So it is correct that it is a wash. It is not an additional burden on the general fund.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call.
Could we just show you real quick what it's going to look like? 5 minutes.
Well, no, I'm going to say, I'm going to say 2.5 minutes.
I'm going to stand right here.
All right. Okay.
5 minutes.
All right. Give us if we speak quickly.
My name's Sam Johnson with BLDD Architects, and my partner Bruce Maxey and I are going to present this. Bruce, if you'll start that. I'm just going to briefly review the design drivers for the design solution. Essentially, we're presenting a 21st century solution for the 3801 Marquette facility. That means two things. One, it's built for flexibility, change over time, and two, it's built to meet the changing needs of curriculum and instruction. And I think I'll let Bruce start.
Okay, very quickly, a little washed out, but we'll go. What you see here.
Stick them
Stick on the main building. All right, I want to do that. 3801 Marquette, here's our existing building. North is to the left over here. We are creating a new west entry. It's a little difficult to see. It's a little washed out.
The design. Go right to the design.
Go right to the design. All right. We'll go right to the design. We've got a new west entry. The first floor are the public spaces, the administration, the Head Start daycare, a main central stair that is open to all 3 floors with a commons area that serves as extended seating for the media center as well as cafeteria seating. We've also got this outdoor environment, this patio that we're creating to extend the commons to the outside and also create an outdoor educational venue. There's some seated risers here to account for that. The second floor we have the maker spaces, family and consumer science, art and industrial technology. In addition to that, we have some general classroom spaces. The general classrooms are paired with a hardened office area, which will potentially provide shelter in the event of a violence incident. We have the lease space, which we've turned it 90 degrees from how it's oriented, but just so you, in case you're wondering. We have a re-engagement center. This is the part of the building that serves the people who have dropped out and are coming back to try to be re-engaged. The Iowa Jobs After Graduation classroom, a robotics room to help, or a classroom, which is detailed as robotics right now. We have the wellness area. You can see there's cardio equipment spread around. There's table games as well as video type games for active learning, as well as a gathering space, which is a small classroom where they do their current events and things at the beginning of their period. We also have a music room that is open, that you can open up to capture these 2 conference spaces. These 2 conference spaces will also serve as a computer lab, so trying to maintain ultimate flexibility between all those spaces. Third floor is predominantly the more educational spaces. You see the paired classrooms going along, so there's 8 general classrooms, a small computer or a computer lab, as well as 2 science labs and a separate lecture space, which is also tied in with an operable partition to one of the science labs. We're going to go into just a little more detail on the collaboration areas. What you see here are these classrooms being used as traditional classrooms. 4 walls, kind of in a box, isolated units, each one operating as itself. The collaboration space just in the center just being circulation. What you see here is each of these classrooms has an operable wall that can be opened up so that all these classrooms ultimately could flow together, just 1 or 2 of them. It provides varied learning environments. You can have small group environments, you can have individual one-on-one environments, you can have large group environments. So trying to be as flexible as possible to adapt to future needs. Some 3D images of what that collaboration space could look. You see these elements are the glass, the operable glass partitions. These are the small group and larger group learning spaces here. Another image from above, if you took the floor off the top. Some interior perspectives coming up the stairs. We actually decided today to try to do the stairs as more of a glass panel as opposed to a solid wood panel. Some of these spaces looking through as we go. And then that's the operate. Now the one place that we're attaching or we're addressing the exterior of the building, because it pretty much is staying the way it is, was that west entry, trying to come up with something. So we've been through several reiterations with that, and right now we've landed on one option being trying to incorporate the potential purple that was being considered as the school color with some transparent mesh panels so that the light is still can get to the classroom and through the mesh panels, but we can still create that monumental kind of front entry to the building.
That's it. 5 minutes.
And I'll breathe now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions by the board? Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I had the privilege of teaching at Bettendorf Middle School in one of my pink slip years, and they were a pod system with flex spaces. The noise pollution from the other classrooms was nightmarish. How are you ensuring that these will have some autonomy as far as the ability to lecture?
All right, the idea behind the concept is that our design is convertible, meaning that we can teach the way we have for the past 50 years, or with some strategic partitions, we can teach in a variety of ways that we see in the future to meet changing needs of education. So those are sound performing partitions. They have a high STC, sound transmission coefficient, the same as a wall. And so it's very different than the open plan and the pod concepts that you've seen in the past.
Director Dickman.
I'm guessing that that's somewhere in the drawings, but are you going to have an elevator of sorts for physically? Just wanted to double check.
Absolutely, it's current, it's already there.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Any additional discussion by the board? We'll call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of plans and specifications for J.B. Young 202 remodel Phase 2?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
I move that the board accept the administration recommendation and approve the plans and specifications for the J.B. Young 202 remodel Phase 2 project.
May I have a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the J.B. Young 202 remodel Phase 2 as published in the Quad City Times on Friday, March 14th, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Kluhl.
I had to look at my name, see what it was, huh? Forget who I was?
No, I was looking down to see if you were actually
okay.
Had your mic on.
All right. I just want to, like President Johansson says, maybe a 1-minute answer. This is probably simple, and it's probably for Scott.
He's not smarter than I am.
Okay. I'm just thinking in terms of when we're talking about prime contractors and pulling contractors together, I wonder if we're using the Iowa Association of School Boards ICAT program, Iowa Construction Advocacy Team. They utilize Estes Construction, which is local, and I'm out of order in asking this question at this point because I didn't bring it up earlier, but I just wanted to, and it looks like we are not utilizing that process. I'll give you the information to talk with them because there might be a cost savings there.
So Eric can speak to that.
Well, on this specific project, we're not on the JB Room 202. It's a rather small project. It's only budgeted about $150,000. We're just converting. It was an old room. It was a large space. It was just used as storage. With the expansion of the K-12 model at JB Young, they needed some more spaces. Phase 1 was we just erected one wall for them for this year, so that's already in place. And Phase 2 does require moving some of the CMU walls, and we're moving that into, in total, it'll be 3 rooms. But as to using Estes Construction and construction management platforms, both on the Truman and on the 3801 Marquette Street project we're using, there are several construction managers in the Quad Cities. So Bush Construction Company we're using as the construction manager and doing multiple primes on the Truman project. We actually are using Estes Construction as a construction manager on the 3801 Marquette Street.
I noticed that, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't working with them. Well, I wanted to ascertain whether we were using the offices of IASB. We're paying $10,000 a year to be a part of that organization, and we should get some benefits from that. So I'll give you that information and check. Rather than working with them directly, we might work through IASB and find a cost savings.
Any additional discussion? There was no presentation on this, right?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Crumity.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Cluel.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of 1,080 hours of instruction for the 2014-15 school year?
Mr. President,
Director Crumity.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve an annual schedule for the 2014-2015 school year, which includes 1,080 hours of student instruction.
May I have a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing concerning approval of a schedule with 1,080 hours of instruction rather than 180 days for the 2014-2015 school year, as published in the Quad City Times on March 12th, 2014. Anyone wishing to speak on this, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Cluel.
Just a note of appreciation if there are any legislators listening in tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to have the flexibility here at the local school district that this provides versus the trend that seems to be powering it from up above. So appreciate this opportunity to do a better job with cooperation from the state legislature.
Any other discussion? Director DeFow.
For the audience, I'm wondering if the superintendent might speak to the advantages of moving to 1,080 hours as opposed to 180 days.
Yes, the legislature did give us the opportunity this year and in subsequent years to declare which were going to be 186-hour days or just a total of 1,080 hours, and we would be able to change this every year. This year we were supposed to report by the 1st of March, but they've given us a reprieve, and we're reporting with our personnel beds report in April, and then next year we'll have to report by the 1st of November. I did have the Bell Time Study Committee look at this very carefully, and we sort of grabbed at 1,080 right away. See, gee, that sounds pretty cool. It gives a lot of flexibility, but then we settled down to really make a study, and what we decided was that 1,080 hours gives us maximum flexibility in that with our current plan and the bell times we're going to talk about in the next 2 days and then bring to you in April to approve. For example, at the high school, we have 25 additional hours a year and 18 additional hours in the elementary and intermediate schools. That means, for example, if we ever came upon another winter like we've had where we're going to have to go into June or after Memorial Day, we could actually, with board approval, say, well, we're going to lop those 2 days off. We actually have the hours. Not to say we want to waste instructional hours, but it just gives you absolute maximum flexibility. If you have a 2-hour delay in snow days and you need to make sure that you have those on the end, and again, because of the plan we're going to provide you, we do have plenty of flexibility to do that. So when we looked at it, we saw no reason not to go to 1,080, and as far as I know, I don't know of any districts that were choosing to go to the 186 hours. I could be wrong, but I was selecting. Everyone seemed to think, hey, this is great, gives us maximum flexibility, and that's why I'm recommending it to the board, and it came highly recommended from the Bell Time Committee.
Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Cluel.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding food and nutrition pricing recommendation?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move the administration recommendation that the board approve the 2014-15 meal prices as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Kluel.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of Walcott Elementary partial roof replacement?
Mr. President,
Director DeFow.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation and approve the lowest responsive bid of $197,400 from Geisler Brothers Company of Dubuque, Iowa for the Walcott Elementary School partial roof replacement project.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Dickman.
As Director Sherwood had mentioned earlier, that we want that these are tax dollars and we want to be local if possible. I know we're, by code, we have to accept the lowest responsive bid. I guess just if you can elaborate on how, I know that local, or elaborate on how, on Dubuque and how we're trying to keep things local, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, we do, but the roofing contractors, unfortunately, they're pretty spread out. We have them from Muscatine and Dubuque, Eldridge. This one, they're a good contractor. They've worked with us before. They do a lot of work with us. Iowa Code does give you the ability to do local if the board would want to go that way. But we have tried to stay, once you start that, it can be a slippery slope. So we do try to stay with the lowest bid, responsive bids.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Snyder. Excuse me, Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
No.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Kluel.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of North High School partial roof replacement?
Mr. President,
Director DeFow.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the lowest responsible bid of $97,530 from Economy Roofing and Insulating Company, Inc. of Bettendorf, Iowa, for the North High School partial roof replacement project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Dickman.
There's quite a big difference between the different bids. Do you have any idea of why there's such great differences?
No, and I should have talked about that in the last one. Everybody's bids depend on what their workload is at the moment. So sometimes if they're not hungry, they'll pad it and see if they get it. Where others, they may have a shorter workload and be able to throw more resources at it, and they want to keep paying their workers. So sometimes that drives that discrepancy.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other discussion? Director Sherwood.
I have a follow-up question. Thank you for bringing it up, Maria. We're going to see a lot of pressure put on the local construction folks with Genesis developing what they're doing and these other projects. Some of these things, would we be better off postponing some of these things in order to wait for a more opportune moment in the market?
Yeah, no, I don't believe so. For one, we don't know what that market's going to be like in 4 more years. If the market continues to keep turning around, or the economy, that could drive more construction. Today, we are getting out ahead a little bit, but there is a pretty full pipeline in the area, so we're not exactly sure where that's going to play with our prices. Not just the Genesis project, which I think is $135 million, but there's also a $50 or $60 million project for Trinity across the river.
Yeah, and we've got this casino coming in and all that as well.
Yeah, which they're not ready to go. We are ready to get these done. So I think now is the right time to do them.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of Truman Elementary School remodel?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
before I move this, I would like to bring to the board's attention that we need to, I believe, insert the word responsive after responsible, and responsive bidder. Is that correct? Okay, so I would like to move the administration's recommendation, the approval of the lowest responsive bids from the successful contractors in each of the 13 bid packages as presented, with the additional alternates 1, 3, 4, 6, and 8, for a subtotal of $6,186,305.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. I have a motion regarding approval of 3801 Marquette Street demolition project.
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board recommend the administration's recommendation to approve the lowest responsible and responsive bid from MWE Services, doing business as Midwest Demolition, out of Lincoln, Nebraska, in the amount of $232,800.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
This one stood out at me right away because they are so far away, and I hate to beat this topic down because we've been talking about it, but there is a huge. I mean, we estimated $600,000, and they came in at $232,000, which is less than half of the third bidder. And I understand that, that's driven hugely by what you talked about with in regards to how much business people have and how far booked out they are and essentially how hungry they are. But that seems to be, how did we estimate that at $600,000 and have that come in at $232,000?
But, do you want to do that?
Randy, you want to join me? Couple things that determine that. We estimated using round labor from around this area, and it's shown in some of the other bids we've got from the contractors in this with union rates and some of the work that's going around here. One big thing that played a factor into their pricing, which is represented in the bid forms. Their pricing, what they pay, what they charge is about half the price for their laborers. It's about $31 an hour for their laborers, whereas the two contractors that submitted bids from this area were both in the 50s. So right there, and just in the labor hours, that can show you why they came in substantially lower. Another reason they came in lower is they're a contractor that specializes in only demolition. That is the only thing they go in and they do. So as far as skilled labor, whereas another contractor, like some of the other bids, are paying skilled carpenters to actually do the removal. They do have laborers doing that work, but that's some of it. Randy, maybe you can speak a little more to how you came up with the estimate of $600,000. This is Randy Fuller. He's
Randy
with
Fuller
Estes.
with Estes Construction. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Eric covered many of the main points in that the difference in labor rates is considerable. We put our budget estimate together using typical local labor rates And that's where that number, I think we can see one of the local contractors that had bid on the project, Hildebrand Construction, was actually very close to what we had estimated the project at, which kind of speaks to that the estimate I don't feel was way out of bounds, that actually was pretty close. As we said, from the bid on it, all they do is demolition work. They're finishing up a large project in Cedar Rapids right now and really have no place for their people to go. So this kind of fell just right at the right time for us to attract their attention and get them in here and do the project for the price that they were talking about. So I don't know if you have any other questions, specific questions for me.
That makes sense to me, but it just seemed odd to come in a third of our, not that I'm complaining, but coming in a third of our estimate.
Right, exactly. And that's the kind of thing, when you're budgeting, you can't always count on that. If they were busy and we were just going with the local market, we would probably be much closer to where that estimate was.
Director Sherwood.
What do we know about their employee safety record and their track record with dealing with their own employees? We get somebody that gets this low, and I start to get concerned that we're looking at not just the possibility of issues of quality of doing the job, but that we're subsidizing someone who may be not the best actor as far as taking care of their own people.
Right. I understand. I mean, one of the things that we did have a interview with them, and one of the items that we cover during our interview is safety, making sure that they are required to use all proper personal protective equipment, hard hat, safety glasses, and that's why we'll have full-time supervision on the site to make sure that they comply with those OSHA requirements. We did check references on other projects they have completed.
And then also to that fact, they actually have done work for Davenport School District before as a subcontractor when we've done other work. When we completed the west facade, we had to take down some of the brick and re-put that up in summer 2012. Then also at the Children's Village West, they did the demolition part of that contract as well. They were a subcontractor, so their name didn't come up, but they actually completed that work as a subcontractor for us previously. So we have worked with them before.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll call for the vote. Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding approval of board doc service and supporting technology?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the Ad hoc Technology Committee of the Board recommendation that the board approve the purchase of the Board Docs LT service and the laptop computers to support the board's use of this service.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Crumwitty.
Mr. President, just to make sure the board understands, in your packets, there was an insert of the overview of the costs for both the Board Docs program, which we received information on, I believe, at the last Committee of the Whole meeting, and also information about the computers. We had Rudy meet with us 3 times to talk about both the software and the hardware. And in your packet that we sent out, in the paragraph that says, I recommend, it's what we meant to say is we recommend as the committee the 17-inch laptop. And we did bring the laptops to the board table when we were meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, and he's going to talk a little bit about why we are making this recommendation.
The company that we deal with through the district for laptops or computer equipment in general, there's only a $50 per unit difference between the 15 and the 17. And what you get from the 15 to the 17 is pretty dramatic as far as the actual screen size. Screens are measured from diagonal to diagonal, so 17 inches doesn't mean it's going to be much taller or more obtrusive in the way of blocking views. It just gives you so much larger screen view so that you can actually have a couple full documents open on your 17-inch. You could have your agenda on one side and whatever paperwork or lack thereof actually with board docs, but whatever document on the left side, and be able to have full view of both, or you can close one. It just gives you a lot more desktop workable space on a 17-inch monitor. This also would alleviate the need to go to regular monitors. It would give, for anybody that has trouble viewing, like smaller screens, you can also change the resolution. 17-inch monitors just a lot easier to make work for us. And when you see here, I've got a 17 and a 15 opened. Height-wise, this is the 15, of course. Height-wise, there's very, very little difference in the height-wise from a 15 to a 17. But the screen, longer, it's just not going to block really anything more than what a 15 does. So I guess that's really all I have to add, unless anybody has any questions on the two.
I imagine there will be. Director Sherwood?
Well, no, I want to thank you guys, and I agree with the 17, and I want to thank Mary, because I think there's a lot of work went into this, and it's overdue. Are we going to have power sources here at the board table where these can be plugged in? And I'm assuming the bigger one probably has a less of a battery life than the smaller ones. True?
Not much of a difference of a battery life, but they said that they will have power for the laptops. They will be run wirelessly, internet-wise.
And I've heard some complaints about the wireless network inside some of our buildings. And is that an issue inside this building?
We asked them that as well. In fact, they were having a meeting out here with a bunch of staff, and I think there was 30 to 40 people out here, all with Chromebooks, all connected wirelessly and moving right along just fine. So
cool.
They said that we have plenty of bandwidth and that wouldn't be an issue.
Well, thanks again.
Anything else? Director Dickman?
I just wanted to express my sincere excitement. As an environmentalist, seeing all these dead trees is always very hard on me every week, and I'm just very excited. And thank you for all your hard work.
Anything else? I've got a couple things. Would you mind passing that down here, the 17-inch?
Yep.
So,
when we discussed this, we actually, figured people would have them off to the side.
right.
Not in front.
And with that open, we actually kind of invaded their meeting when we were having our ad hoc meeting, and people, they kind of stopped and were looking at us, but we had laptops set up here, and we were just kind of looking from out there to check the view to see how much it was blocking. And I guess we encourage anybody else who has that concern to actually get up and take a look that it doesn't hardly block anything.
Is there plenty of space on our tables here for these?
Yeah, when we get rid of all this, we'll have plenty of space.
Anybody else want this?
Put it straight up. I want to see what it looks like.
To the side.
Or wherever you're going to use it.
And we're going to have Skype on these so that when Ralph calls in, he can actually interact with us?
They actually have we talked about that too at the meeting. And Skype is more designed for like one-on-one type. And they actually have a Skype cart that's specific to Skype right in the other room. That yes, we can use, and we decided too that we would encourage people, if they want to take the laptops, take them home with them. They'll have Office on there. You can do all your email on it. You can do whatever you want. If we do leave them here, they'll have to be locked up somewhere for security reasons. We didn't want to just leave them out on the table. There's too many people that have access to this room, so.
Presumably, we're going to be emailed the documents, right? The board documents.
Yeah, they'll all be, it's all done through the cloud, so you'll be able to
Part of the program.
access them on whatever, but you'll have everything if you want to keep it all on your one laptop, your email, and this does include, they have a great corporate bulk license agreement with Microsoft Office for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook for email. That would be included in that. It's like $50 a license, and that's included on the on what we're voting on as far as the software.
All right, thank you. Is there any additional discussion? Director Crumity.
I just want to, again, remind the board that if this motion is approved this evening, it's my understanding that Mary will be in touch with the company within the next couple of days. And what we were told is, from Board Docs, is that it would be approximately 6 to 8 weeks. And then we'll be scheduling a workshop, so Board Docs will come in and take us all through the program and answer any questions that we have. If you also desire to have a one-on-one tutoring session prior to them coming in, they would be more than happy to do that. So, is that not right?
Not a tutoring
Well,
session.
information.
They were willing to do a one-on-one about the program
About
like
the
she
program,
did.
yeah. I didn't mean
Not
a training
okay.
on how to use
Okay,
it.
yeah.
They're gonna come in and train all of us
Right,
together on how
right,
to use it.
right, yeah.
So, Jamie?
And actually, like, if new board members come in down the road, they will train at no extra charge, one-on-one, whatever they want. It wouldn't be locally, unless we wanted to pay their travel expenses, but they could get them up to speed via, like, GoToMeeting or whatever we choose, like they did with our meeting that night. So they are there for us support-wise. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up on the laptops. We asked them typically, like with the laptop use that's in the district right now, what kind of life expectancy are they getting out of their laptops? And through normal use, not on them pounding all day, they're getting about 5 to 7 years plus out of a laptop. So that was one other thing that we thought we'd like to get them all the same, because they very well could outlast each and every one of us sitting at this board table, and we didn't want to get, a 15 would be fine for me, Maria wants a 17. We feel it would be best just to get what's going to be the most effective for all and get them all the same, expecting them that they could be sitting at this for, upwards of 5 to 8 years or so, normal expectancy.
Okay, thank you. Any additional discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Crumity.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
My vote is yes. The motion carries unanimously.
Amen.
I have a motion regarding resolution fixing the date of sale, approving electronic bidding procedures, and approving official statement.
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I was going to recommend that Hannah maybe do her math homework while we went through this. It's rather lengthy, but you adults are here at your own risk, so hang on. I move that the board approve the following resolution fixing the date of sale of not to exceed $10 million in school infrastructure sales service taxes and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2014, approving electronic bidding procedures and approving official statement. The resolution is as follows. Whereas pursuant to Iowa Code Chapters 423E and 423F, the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District, that being the issuer, is currently entitled to receive proceeds of the statewide school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax. And Whereas pursuant to an election duly held in the district in accordance therewith, September 10th, 2013, and pursuant to Iowa Code Chapters 423E and 423F, the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District approved a revenue purpose statement and is currently entitled to expend proceeds of the statewide school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax. And whereas the board finds it advisable and necessary that bonds authorized at the election be offered for sale for the purpose authorized at the election, and it is in the best interest to issue bonds. And whereas the board deems it in the best interest of the school district and the residents thereof to receive bids to purchase school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds by means of both sealed and electronic internet communications. And whereas the board has received information from its financial advisor recommending the procedure for electronic bidding so as to provide for the integrity of the competitive bidding process and to facilitate the delivery of bids by interested parties. Now, therefore, it is resolved by the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, State of Iowa, Section 1, that the parity competitive bidding system and the electronic bidding procedures attached hereto are found and determined to provide reasonable security and to maintain the integrity of the competitive bidding processes, and to facilitate the delivery of bids by interested parties in connection with the sale of not to exceed $10 million in school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2014. Section 2, that all electronic bidding shall be submitted in substantial conformity with Iowa Code Section 75.14 and Chapter 554D. Section 3, that school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2014, in the aggregate amount of not to exceed $10 million, that being the bonds, to be issued and dated May 15, 2014, be offered for sale. Section 4, that the Secretary of the Board and this school district shall cause to be prepared an official statement and to schedule the sale of the bonds. The bonds to be offered are school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2014, in the principal amount of not to exceed $10 million, to be dated May 15, 2014. The official statement shall include the following terms, and the electronic bidding procedures attached to the resolution are approved. Time and place of sale, sealed bids, or electronic bids for the sale of bonds of the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, State of Iowa, that being the issuer, will be received at the office of the district's financial advisor, Public Financial Management Incorporated, 801 Grand Avenue, Suite 3300, Des Moines, Iowa 50309, 515-243-2600, until 11 o'clock a.m. on April 14, 2014. The bids will be publicly opened at that time and be evaluated by the Chief Financial Officer and the Financial Advisor and referred for action at the meeting of the Board of Directors. Sale and award. The sale and award of the bonds will be held at the board meeting scheduled on the same date. Manner of bidding. Open bids will not be received. No bid will be received after the time specified above for receiving bids. Bids will be received by any of the following methods. Sealed bidding. Sealed bids may be submitted and will be received at the office district's financial advisor, Public Financial Management Incorporated, 801 Grand Avenue, Suite 3300, Des Moines, Iowa 50309, 515-243-2600. Another manner of bidding is electronic bidding. Electronic internet bids will be received at the office of the district's financial advisor, Public Financial Management Incorporated, 801 Grand Avenue, Suite 3300, Des Moines, Iowa 50309, 515-243-2600. The bids must be submitted through parity. And finally, electronic facsimile bidding. Electronic facsimile bids will be received at the office of the district's financial advisor, Public Financial Management Incorporated, 801 Grand Avenue, Suite 3300, Des Moines, Iowa 50309, telephone number 515-243-6994. Electronic facsimile bids will be sealed and treated as sealed bids. On the issue, the official statement. An official statement of information pertaining to the bonds to be offered shall be prepared by the district's financial advisor, including a statement of the terms of offering and an official bid form. The official statement may be obtained by request addressed to the Chief Financial Officer, Davenport Community School District, 1606 Brady Street, Davenport, Iowa, 52803, 563-336, 5000, or Public Financial Management Incorporated, 801 Grand Avenue, Suite 3300, Des Moines, Iowa, 50309, 515-243-2600. Term of offering: all bids must be in conformity with, and the sale must be in accord with the terms of offering as set forth in the official statement. Legal opinion: bonds will be sold subject to the opinion of Ehlers and Cooney, P.C., attorneys of Des Moines, Iowa, as to the legality, and their opinion will be furnished together with the printed bonds without cost to the purchaser, and all bids will be so conditioned. Except to the extent necessary to issue their opinions as to the legality of the bonds, the attorneys will not examine or review or express any opinion with respect to the accuracy or completedness of documents, materials, or statements made in or furnished in connection with the sale, issuance, or marketing of the bonds. Rights reserved: the right is reserved to reject any or all bids and to waive any irregularities as deemed to be in the best interest of the public. And Section 5, that the preliminary official statement in the form presented to this meeting be and the same hereby is approved as to form and deemed final for purposes of Rule 15C2-12 of the Securities and Exchange Commission, subject to such revisions, corrections, or modifications as the superintendent, chief financial officer, and board secretary, upon the advice of the district's financial advisor, shall determine to be appropriate, and is authorized to be distributed in connection with the offerings of the bonds for sale. And that completes that resolution.
Great job. You've waited all day to read that, haven't you?
I practiced, yeah.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. We have a presentation of the budget. Marcia?
Could you pass that down to Ralph? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to start off this evening with presenting to you the budget amendment for the 2013-2014 school year. And every year, we need to amend the budget, and the reason that we do is because a district can only exceed our limits of spending by amending the budget, and we have to amend the budget before we actually exceed the amount originally adopted. And what we would be looking at exceeding would be the limits on a functional basis. The law is very specific that you can't exceed the functional basis that you originally submitted your budget on, and so that's why we amend it. The highlights of the amendment, and one of the reasons, especially this year, that we need to amend it is that when we originally certified the budget last year, we certified it at 0% allowable growth, because at that point in time, that's where the state was. And we didn't know anything different than then because they had not set the allowable growth. What they did end up doing then was establishing the 2+2 for this year, and that was a 2% allowable growth with an additional one-time payment of 2%, which is looked at as miscellaneous income. So there was quite a difference there versus our original certification to what that additional revenue meant to us with the 2+2. Another reason for highlighting or for amending the budget was because of the revenue bond proceeds that we're going to be receiving for the resolution that you just approved. We'll have $10 million coming in, and it will be coming in during the 2013-14 school year. So we need to make sure that we include that in our budget also in those functional areas. And then also, I put in there for a highlight of the amendment is taking a look at our unspent balance. So here's what the budget amendment looks like for the 2013-2014 school year. There's actually only 2 of the functional areas, and those are the 4 functional areas that the state designates for us that we have to summarize our budget in. And there were really only 2 areas that looked like that we needed to amend, and that was in the instruction and the total support services. You can see in the total support services quite a bit of an adjustment there from $53 million to $59 million. And that was due mostly to that additional state aid that's coming in that we had designated would be coming in those total support areas. The non-instructional programs, the total other expenditures did not look like those areas needed to be amended. So I'm recommending that those just remain where they're at. So our projected fund balance at the end of June is going to be about $26.7 million, and that is the highest ever fund balance that we've had in the district. Our projected unspent balance is going to be about $6.1 million, and that is projected to be down from our 2013 balance of $10.7 million. So is there any questions on the amendment before I move into the budget for 2014-15? Oh, okay. I'll move into the 2014-2015 budget. Some highlights of the budget that I wanted to draw your attention to is the budget does include $2 million in reductions, and those are the reductions that the board had approved. It does include the receipt of the TLCS grant, the Teacher Leader Compensation System grant. It does include a reduction in our cash reserve levy, and I will talk a little bit more about these. It also includes a reduction in our property tax levy, which we have not done in several years. It also includes another $10 million revenue bond issue. When we had decided to do the one in 2014, the board had also expressed an interest in 2015. This doesn't tie you to that, but since we had expressed an interest, it was built into the budget, and again, that can always be amended if you would change your mind. And then also a declining unspent balance, which really shouldn't come as a surprise. Some background to it, it does include 4% allowable growth, which we know that we will have for next year. Our enrollment was up, although we did have an adjustment down in our enrollment due to our audit when the auditors found that there were, I believe it was around 63 students that were counted that should not have been. So that was an audit adjustment down. And then the other thing of note is our taxable valuations. There was virtually no increase in the amount of taxable valuations from last year to this year, which is somewhat unusual. We've been in the 2 to 3% range, and for next year we're going to see a 0.18% increase. So that is significant in the fact that it's unusual that we don't have more of an increase. And we've talked before with the board about how Davenport is considered a property poor district, and I think this kind of supports that too, to show that we're not having more growth in that. Of note for next year, when we look at the general fund revenues, the 4% growth that we're getting, it means that we're going to get $6,366 per pupil. Our 4% of allowable growth actually equates to a 4.27% amount of allowable growth, and that is because of our increase in enrollment. We talk about when that 4% could be something less, and that would be when our enrollment is declining, but we know for next year that our enrollment base was increasing, and so it's actually more than 4% that we're going to realize. The Teacher Leadership Compensation Grant that we're receiving is around $5 million, and the cash reserve that we're going to be levying is $4.4 million less than what we levied in 2014, and I'll explain that in just a minute. The $2 million in reductions, I just wanted to remind you what those reductions were and the dollar amounts that we had associated with every one of those reductions. Every one of those were built into the budget for next year at the amounts that were listed there. Highlights from some of the other funds. The management fund, we did increase the levy of $500,000. That will more than cover what any projected increase that we might see in our liability taxes in the management fund. So we just estimated and increased the levy by $500,000, but you'll see in the end that it's not going to have an impact on what that levy amount is. Again, our capital projects, we will have $10 million in a bond issue in 2015 that was built into the budget. And then our debt service fund, which we haven't had in a number of years, we will reestablish, and that is set up to pay the principal and the interest from both of those bond sales that we'll have in 2014 and in 2015. So our projected fund balance at the end of June is going to be just a little bit over $22 million. Unfortunately, our projected unspent balance is only going to be about $250,000, and that takes quite a hit from where we are going to project ending on June 30th of 2014. So putting it all together, and I've heard this discussion, and so I wanted to bring it to the board's attention. Why are we making $2 million in reductions when we're building, buying, and remodeling all over the district? We're reducing the tax levy. We have a record high fund balance, and we're receiving almost $5 million from the state. It doesn't make sense. And I'm sure to a lot of people that doesn't make sense. How can you be making reductions when you have all these other things going on? And I wanted to try and clear that up if I could. First off, with construction. Construction is funded through the Capital Projects Fund. It's funded through SAVE, which is the new acronym, or loss funds, our statewide penny, and from the revenue bond sales. It's money that is collected from these sources that can only be used for those purposes expressly defined by the state, and that is for acquiring or constructing major capital projects, purchasing buildings, furnishing, reconstructing, and payment of bonded debt. So it can't be used for any general fund purpose. So all the building and constructing and buying and remodeling that we have going on in the district does not affect what's happening in the general fund, because those purposes are very specific as to what we can use it for. The reduction of property taxes. The reduction of the cash reserve levy, and we're talking about that part of the levy that has no spending authority associated with it. The reason that you have a cash reserve levy is to have working capital in reserve for unforeseen events. Your working capital really equates to what your fund balance is. In 6/30/2014, we estimated about 12.08% of a financial solvency ratio, and the range is recommended to be between 5 and 15%. The other use that you have for a cash reserve levy is to fund your unspent balance, which we know we have a declining unspent balance. So when you looked at those two areas, we're in the target of where we want to be to have capital in reserve for unforeseen events. We don't have any unspent balance that we need to fund. So it just made sense to reduce the amount of the cash reserve levy, because why have cash build up that you can't use? And so cash received from the cash reserve levy, again, doesn't have an impact on spending authority, because the amount that we levy has no spending authority attached to it. It is strictly for those unforeseen circumstances. So the fact that we're reducing our property taxes would have no impact on the $2 million in reductions that we're making. And then the $5 million in the TLCS grant. Sounds like a lot of money, and you may say, well, if you're getting $5 million, why do you have to reduce by 2? Well, it's because it's coming for the grant, which is categorical funding, meaning that it can only be used for the purposes of the grant. So categorical funding can only be used for that express purpose, and it can't be used for anything else. So the fact that we're making $2 million in reduction would have no impact of the $5 million we have coming in, because that $5 million is for a dedicated reason and a dedicated source. So hopefully that helps explain why we're making reductions in the tax levy. We're doing building and construction in the district, and we're receiving money from the state, but we still have to make those $2 million in reductions. So the next step on the budget is board action on April 14th and certifying the budget to the state on April 15th. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear on this teacher leadership compensation grant. These are going to be funding essentially new positions that are directed by the state based on the plan we put forth. This money is not replacing current funding. I mean, it's not freeing up any money.
That's correct.
So these are all new things, and our expectation is it's going to strengthen instruction throughout the district, but it is not something we're currently funding, and so this is just kind of like found money that we're using for new projects. It doesn't go toward anything we've already doing.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any Director DeFau?
I think, to be fair, rather than make the statement that we're approving $2 million in budget cuts. We're really cutting $800,000 from our budget and relying on $1.2 million in relief from the health insurance fund.
That would be accurate, yes.
And I'm alarmed that we are poised to approve a budget that puts us so precariously close to a negative unspent fund balance. Our fund balance at the end of this year is $6 million.
That's what it's projected to be, yes.
And we're then talking about barely, not even $250,000 in the next year.
Right.
Which indicates to me that we're overspending by $6 million, almost, what we're being allocated to spend.
That's correct.
How can we sit at this table and do that? We're doing a disservice to this school district. Again, we have to make some hard decisions and some sustainable budget cuts. And I am gravely concerned. And I truly hope that in the next 2 months that the administration comes to us with some hard choices and options for us to consider. You know, we've talked about whether we move from block to traditional calendar schedule. We have had conversation about increasing class size. You know, continuing on this path, I mean, $4 million decrease in unspent fund balance last year, $6 million for the next year. We can't go $4 million in the hole. So then what do we cut? What programs do we cut? What classrooms do we hurt? What it's frightening. It's frightening. And we've come full circle, literally, in 13 years. When I came to this board, I think that's about what the fund balance was at the time.
It was, honestly, it was probably just the opposite. Our spending authority was probably in that $20 million range when we got that one-time infusion from the state, and our fund balance was negative. And so what we've done is we've reversed it. And that came about years ago when the board decided they didn't want to have a negative fund balance anymore, and they upped the property tax levy by over $1. And so that brought in additional revenue, which of course helped the fund balance, but then when that revenue was spent, it hurt the unspent balance.
Right. I predate the $20 million infusion from the state, so.
Any additional discussion? Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I want to support what Nikki's saying, and I've said it here a number of times, but this is going to take some big thinking, some strategic thinking to deal with this, and I don't like the idea of sacrificing the block schedule to this, if teachers prefer that, which generally seem to. I think there are other possibilities, and I've said it a number of times, like restructuring a number of our elementaries to K-8s has possibilities. I think consolidation and unfortunately the additional closing of a building or two may be something that we have to do and bite the bullet on. I don't know that it has to impact the quality of instruction in the district, though, if we look at other models. And I don't say this just Bill Sherwood saying this. People across the country are going to those kinds of models in order to do exactly the kind of thing we're talking about: fiscal, conservation, and realignment of how we do business. We have to be more imaginative than I've seen us be since I've been on this board. We can't just keep bleeding the body and not expect to have to pay a huge price at some point. We have to rethink how we're doing business, and I don't know that we've done that.
Anything else?
There is one more thing I would like to add is, and I didn't mention this in the presentation, but that we do have an opportunity to go to the School Budget Review Committee to ask for more spending authority. And one area that we usually go to them in the spring is to ask for spending authority for the excessive amount of ELL cost. Typically we would have been going, but this year the state changed their deadline. They moved it from the spring to the fall. So whereas we could have had maybe another $500,000 in spending authority included in this budget. It'll have to be in the following year's budget because of that deadline change. And the other thing I can tell you is that we are working on a project that could potentially take some costs from the general fund and move it over to the management fund, and that's for some equipment breakdown insurance. And I'll provide you some more information on that when that's available. But those are two more areas just to let you know that we are working on.
Anything else? Director Dickman.
I just wanted to express my appreciation for that. You know, it's hard to make the hard decisions, and if we can not do that through other means, I mean, we'll still have to make some hard decisions. But I think we all appreciate your hard work to keep us in line.
Anybody else? Director Crumwitty.
I'm just concerned about the timelines that we're talking about. We're talking about approving this on April 14th and April 15th. It has to be certified.
Right.
I think we're cutting it really short. So with the concerns that have been brought up tonight, and if the majority of this board is not happy with the budget, where do we go? We have one day.
Well, and if I could, what you are actually approving on April 14th is establishing the tax levy. That's the pivotal point of this budget, is the counties need to know what we're going to establish our tax levy at. And honestly, the budget reductions, if there's further reductions or not, won't affect the tax levy. So even once we certify the budget, the board still has the opportunity to come back and say we want to make additional reductions or we want to do something different. And that's where that budget amendment kicks in. And you can do a budget amendment at any time throughout the year. So it doesn't keep us from doing further reductions. What is really pivotal is that tax reserve levy, or I'm sorry, that tax levy amount.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that explanation because Director DeFall was saying, well, I hope the administration comes back within a couple months. And I'm thinking, oh, for next year. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay.
Anybody else? Director Snyder.
Actually, after Director Crumwitty's comment there, I guess I have a question. That does, how long does it take to certify something like that? I mean, are we, I mean, that sounds like standing at the post office at 11:30 at night before tax day.
It's simply an email to the state where we upload our budget file.
Okay, but I guess, I mean, does that give them time to do what they have to do?
Yeah, because they actually look at it after we've submitted it. Now, we also have to go down to the courthouse and hand them a paper copy of our budget. But the state then reviews all our budget files, and they could make changes. And in fact, every year, I think there have been additional changes they have made because of information or figures that they have provided that have changed. So it's not unusual for the document to change even after we've certified it.
All right. If you're comfortable with it, I'm fine. It just seems kind of desperate.
Right at the end.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I've got to say, this $250,000 does seem awfully thin. And to me, it's almost harrowing, and I don't know how to get by that. Can you explain a little bit about the ramifications of having an unspent balance that low?
Well, we walk the tightrope of going negative, which if we go negative by law, that's illegal. And then we would have to go to the state and present a workout plan. The other thing I can tell you is to keep in mind that projected unspent balance is just that, it's projected. There are a number of areas that could change within the budget that could affect that balance. We have to build the budget based on estimates. For example, we estimate what negotiations are going to come out to be. We estimate what our utilities are going to be. We estimate what contracts are going to come in. We have to estimate open enrollment to know how much tuition may be going out or how much may be coming in. Contracts that we have with vendors, we have to estimate what that might increase. So there are a lot of estimates built into the budget, and I guess what I would say is this is a worst-case scenario. I don't anticipate or wouldn't project that it would get any worse than that, but certainly it could be better than that, depending on how accurate our estimates are.
If I did my math right, earlier I was trying to figure out what % of the budget the unspent balance was, approximately. And it looks like it's something under 1/8 of 1%. That sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you describe all of these estimates, I'm thinking, poof, you could blow that pretty quick if you estimated incorrectly on.
Sure, if you estimate incorrectly, and
Right.
I try to be conservative when I make those estimates. Again, so I'd say that if anything, that balance would get larger, not smaller. I'd like to present this as a worst-case scenario, not a best-case scenario.
I guess there's probably not much more you can do to make me feel comfortable about that, except express what you have. So, thank you. Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
You know, it's not that this is anything that should be surprising to us. What was it, 2 years ago? We got a letter from the state saying that within 2 years, unless something happened with our revenues and expenses, we would be in the red. So we've had that information, and I hear what the board's saying here, but you know, we all had the opportunity when we set the budget, and this is as far as we went. But I agree, when we come back to this next time, we have to do something differently than we have in the past. I mean, there have been the notices I read in the paper just recently about some of the smaller school districts going negative, and it can happen, but it can't happen here. And it's up to this board to make sure that it doesn't. So I agree. We need to think really hard about this, and some of us may have to relent on some areas that we feel very strongly about to make sure that this district does not get hurt in the long run.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Marcia. It's a little after 9. I'm hoping that the rest of the meeting won't take too long. Is there any inclination to take a quick break or not? Yes? All right, then we'll take a 4-minute break. Recess, excuse.
Are we ready?
Okay, we'll resume our meeting. The last discussion item is board protocol, and this is just a discussion about some of the ways that we handle our business. So there are a few topics that I wanted to raise, and these are things that have come up throughout the past year or so, and probably once a year we talk about a little bit. So I want to mention some of these topics and then open it up for discussion. I'd like to, if I can, determine some sort of a consensus on where the board wants to go. One of the issues is Robert's Rules of Order. So we default to Robert's Rules, but we don't adhere to them expressly. We have various practices and precedents that we've used in preference to Robert's Rules. So the question is, how closely should we adhere to these? And there may be, for instance, when you think about Robert's Rules and what's happening with respect to when one of us speaks, but then we have to allow all others to speak before we speak again, things like that. That's what I'm asking for, is how closely. Normally in Robert's Rules, the chair doesn't vote unless it's to break a tie. but our precedence has always been that the president has voted. Second area is with respect to board requests for information and agenda. In the past, we've said anybody can ask for anything, and that's really about it. Some boards have done other things to kind of vet those requests, and some have even gone as far as to actually vote on those requests. And the last area that I've indicated here, and I may indicate another one later, but length of the meetings. Some of our meetings have been pretty long. And so we don't have time limits on how long board members speak or a time limit to the meeting. There are things that we might consider. For instance, not allowing comments or questions during showcase or presentations. I guess the fourth area, I'll go ahead and mention it right now, is no, I'll wait. Let's discuss these three first. And I'd open it up for questions or discussion, some sort of guidance on how to run our meetings. Anybody? Director Dickman.
I think that it's very good that all the board members are able to fully express their opinion. I know that my eyes at least might start to glaze over by the third or fourth hour of the meeting, but that it's part of the democratic process that everyone's voices are heard, and I think that we come to a better conclusion when we've gotten when everyone's gotten a chance to express their opinion. So even though it may take us longer and may be kind of dreary by the end, I think that it's important that we continue to allow everyone to express themselves.
Anybody else? Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this might not be a better conversation in a board work session that we can delve into this a little more depth, especially when we're not mentally, as you're saying, our eyes have glazed over. I'd feel more comfortable having a separate session to discuss this.
Director Snyder.
I just had one quick comment in direct answer to one of the things that you had discussed, and that was limiting conversations from presentations by the schools. That's one of the things that I actually enjoy the most, is seeing the young people and the staff come in and present what they're proud of, and I would hate to not encourage that.
Director DeFau.
And I do think that some of what we're experiencing is more a result of agenda management, I will say, rather than excessive commentary, though I probably have been guilty of that once or twice. I think there are times when we have a showcase and a presentation and 5 discussion items and half a dozen or dozen action items that sometimes I think that we could be more mindful of anticipating the length of time it may take. I mean, although I will say I'm actually pleasantly surprised that it's 9:20 and we're on discussion items tonight. I did rather expect to be here yet another hour. So I know that it's all a guesstimate on occasion, but being mindful of those things. And also I'll add that I did as a board request submit tonight a request to consider a 6:30 start time as a permanent start time. I frequently look at the clock after presentations are done, and most nights we are not beginning our actual meeting until 7:45 or 8 o'clock at night when we have 2 showcases or a showcase and a presentation. That's been consistent for the last several months. If we're going to take an hour for elements of our meeting that are not official business, and I think we need to accommodate that and perhaps shift the meeting time a bit earlier to start.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Director Crumity.
Excuse me. Well, this has been a first experience for me on the agenda committee, and it is a difficult decision to narrow that agenda down because board members request certain things. And with all of the projects that go on in this district, just like if you look at the agenda tonight and what's the majority of our agenda, and I don't want to be critical of us with all these building projects because that's great, but it takes a lot of time to do that. So I just think as board members, we all need to be mindful of what we're asking for. And, you know, if you want it to be on the agenda, well, then we're asking for longer meetings because things come up like building projects and so forth, budget, that we have to do. We don't have any choices. So I think as an agenda committee, we're pretty mindful of that. I was concerned about tonight. I thought, yeah, we're going to be here till 10:30. Last time we met, we wanted to make sure that the board understood what they were getting into with using technology. That all took a lot of time. Probably should have been even a separate meeting as I look back now because that probably took an hour and a half just by itself. So it's a hard decision, but I think we just need to be mindful of what we're wanting on the agenda and just be more careful about it. And we met tonight as the agenda committee, and we have some meetings coming up that they're going to take some time because there's a lot of items. So,
Anything else?
Oh, I might add,
Director DeFau.
in my mind, I would not support utilizing a structure where the president was only allowed to vote in an effort to break a tie.
unless the vice president could have 2 votes. Yeah.
I think we should arm wrestle.
All right. Well, so from this discussion, I haven't determined a lot more other than probably continue the way we're going for the most part, unless we have some specific direction. Like the recommendation for the 6:30, or if at some point somebody asks for a workshop, as Director Sherwood mentioned earlier. Other than that, even if it does take a little bit longer time, for now, my intent is that we'll continue the way we've been going generally, and maybe being a little bit mindful of the time we're taking. So I'll reserve some of my other issues for sometime if we do have a workshop. Thank you very much for your participation. Move on to administrative reports.
None, Mr. President.
Okay. We do have about 4 requests. Before I get to the requests, I'd ask for board reports. Director DeFau.
I'd like to take a moment to extend condolences on behalf of the board and the school district to the family of Shania Renee McDowell. Shania, or Naya as she was known, was a student at Davenport North in the freshman class, and she died on March 12th, 2014, following an asthma attack. She was a member of the show choir and a dear friend of my daughter's, and is truly being missed by that community, that school community. I'm pleased to report that at the family's request, and as Hannah mentioned, more than 50 of our show choir students, both varsity and prep students took part in her funeral and sang the ballad that was part of Center Stage's show, in which Shania had sung the prior Saturday. So, again, condolences to her family and to the North community that are suffering with this loss.
Thank you. Other reports. Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I just want to take a minute to respond. We had a letter last week, a week before, and from a counselor, I believe, kind of criticizing Kimberly Center for its admission policies and talking about how it intimated that it cherry picks students that go to the Kimberly Center. And there was a response at Art sent out by Sherry Womack. And I just want to kind of add on to that, I want to make sure that people understand that every kid that goes to the Kimberly Center, every child there is a child that in one way or another has not been successful in the regular programs. So you're talking about 100% of kids who have not been successful in the regular programming. Now, that's a pretty remarkable statistic just by itself. Now, when we originally established the Kimberly Center in 1987, Joe Dynas was doing Rob Scott's job, if any of you remember Joe Dynas, and he established the policy that any child that was referred from one of the high schools had to come through a meeting into the Kimberly Center, and that the principal of the high school had to be in that meeting when that student was referred, and that the principal had to lay out the interventions that the school had done with that child prior to making the recommendation to go to Kimberly Center. And through that process, it brought a lot of accountability to the regular program. It also acted as a mechanism by which that there was a range of behaviors that were acceptable for the Kimberly Center and a range that were not acceptable for the Kimberly Center. And over the years, when Joe retired and we went about our business, that kind of got put on the back burner, and pretty soon we were putting anybody in the Kimberly Center that we didn't want in a regular program, and it became a dumping ground. And when that happened, it was Katie barred the door. It was almost impossible to teach and to maintain order. It was very, very difficult. Not unusual to have 1, 2, 3 fights a day. When we first opened that program, we had 2 years without a fight when we first opened that program. And so it deteriorated to that point. And we felt like we were really offering a fine educational alternative program when we first opened the door, and then it deteriorated into something that we were not proud of. It's regained much of what it originally had. With the infusion of the grant funds, with the new philosophy in the district, and with the ability of the Kimberly Center to say no to some kids who are just out of the range of their ability to deal with. So that I would tell this counselor and anybody else who wants to hear, this program is doing a top flight job. Right now, as it stands, my guess is it's one of the top alternative programs in the state. We should be proud of it. We should support it. We should not poison it by going back to practices that we know are contrary to the best interest of it. I don't know what her level of frustration is, but I think she was dead wrong. So thank you. Oh, and then number 2, that's it.
Are there any other board reports? Director Dickman.
I ran across Representative Thiede over the weekend, and she mentioned to me that she was going to continue to reintroduce the 6% allowable growth. So I wanted to extend my thank you to her.
Any other reports? We'll move on to board requests. I've got about 4 of them here. First is from Director Sherwood, 32414, an agenda item. I would like a comprehensive presentation on the district's procedures for hiring, evaluating, and developing our coaching staff. Director DeFow. Date of request, 3/24/2014, agenda item. Like to discuss moving the start time of regular board meetings from 7 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Director Snyder. 3/24/2014 information request. I would like information as to how we as a district determine coaches' compensation within our district. We have head coach positions that earn less money than assistant coaches in other sports. What criteria are used to determine pay? Also, how do we determine if assistant coaches are needed and how many? Director Dickman, 3/24/14 agenda item. To discuss the prospect of creating a pilot program of, in parentheses, tools of the mind, curriculum at the preschool and or kindergarten levels. That's it. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.